So I'm very fortunate that I have this trimming system, and this trimming system has different types of um, posts that hold the pieces in place. If I have something that's taller, it has these little holes in the back of it where you can turn them around, and they have prongs that will come up and hold the piece in place. However, these are small pieces. Um, and so for the small piece like that, I'm just using the rubber sides. And the one thing I do want to stress, like if you have this system, make sure that when you put these in, that you put them all in at the same time so that they come in together. You don't want it to make your piece off center because one is further back and one is closer to the piece as it's coming together. Then it's going to push your piece and it's going to go off center. So make sure you set them all at the very edge before you start turning it on. Now, if you do not have one of these, that's okay. Just use clay pieces to hold your vessel in. Now, I always try to make sure that I don't need to trim the top of my piece. I'm very good at compressing my tops, and so I don't need to do any trimming with those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my vessel over. I'm going to set it as centered as possible on here. And then I'm just going to turn. If I notice that one side's touching and another side's not touching, then I need to move my piece a little bit so that I can get it even. All right. So um, this one is just a touch harder than I would like it to be. It's a little bit beyond the leather hard, but not to the point that it is not um, easily um, trimmed. So this piece actually looks pretty good. There's not much that I need to trim on this one. It is flat on the nice and flat on the bottom, so I'm not going to touch the bottom at all. It's a very centered piece, so there shouldn't be much issues with trimming it. And I there are a couple different tools that I use when I trim. They're all ribbon tools mostly. I have this ribbon tool um, with the squared top and the rounded top. I have this large one here. It has the little ribbing on this side, but I usually don't. If I'm creating a design, I might use that in it. But for these, I'm not. So I'm going to be using the flat side of it. And then I have this ribbon tool that I use. Depending on how much I want to take away, I'll use either that side or that side. And this tends to be my favorite one to use. And I usually start with this one. That's what I'm going to do today. I also have sponge, a little bit of water so that at the end I can clean it up nicely. The negative about this piece, or having this trimming um, system here, is that it doesn't give much space for my trimmings to go into my pan. So I tend to have more of a mess with using this system, but I don't mind cleaning it up. So I usually put this on, get this all set up before I turn my wheel on, so that way I don't have accidentally um, have wheel turning while I'm trying to get this set up. All right, so I have this in, it's nice and secure. So I tend to hold the top of it like around the center. And I'm going to start with this side because there's not much to trim. And this piece is fairly trimmed or fairly thin. So I do not want to trim much of it at all. I just don't want to have I just want my edge to look nice. So I'm just going to hold the top of it firmly. I'm holding it firmly, and I know it's probably hard to see on the camera, but I'm actually tucking my elbow into my side. This helps me to make sure my arm is not moving a lot as I'm trimming. It gives it a little bit more stability. Also, if you want to, you could take something. I don't know that if anything right this moment, but something to maybe, I don't know if this would work or not, but prop your arm up on. This is a little too small, but something to prop your arm up on. Just make sure it doesn't touch the wheel and stop the, affect the turning of it. But something to prop your arm up on to help hold it more steady. I'm just using my body, but I find that if I don't use my body, then it tends to um, not help the piece very much. So I'm using my body. I'm using the small end because I just want to do a little bit of trimming. And if you notice, the piece is moving, but my arm is not. I am trying to keep as steady as possible. All right, so I've taken some out. At this point, I don't want to introduce any water into it. I want to just use it the way it sits. I have seen some artists add water to their pieces. They're doing this. I don't think it's necessary. Um, so I don't suggest that you do. All right, so you see I've started to create this little indention here. I just want to make sure it's nice and even. I am kind of pushing a little bit hard on the tool towards the vessel, only because, again, this piece is a little bit drier than I want it to be when I'm at this point. Um, but so I need to add a little bit more pressure to it. Also, sometimes as we're trimming, we can get these little things that look like they're skips in the clay. So I just keep trimming until those skips are gone. If I cannot get rid of those skips, then at the end, I might use my water and sponge to try to make those um, little those little notches, smooth them down better. So I'm actually okay with this. Like I said, I only needed to take off a little bit. I'm actually going to go through. So I did it at this angle here. So I was at this angle when I did it. I'm using this part of my tool. So I was at this angle. Now I'm going to pull it down just a little bit more and just round it out just a little. I'm applying even less pressure here to the side of the tool because I really don't want a round, round, round bottom. I just want to take off a little bit of the edge that I left. So there we go. And I might even do that to the top one right here, just very little bits. At this point also, to get the little edges off, I could switch to my smaller ribbon tool here and use it. All right, there we go. So that is has a nice trim to me. Again, it's pretty thin, so I don't want to take much away from it. I'm just going to go ahead at this point, smooth everything out, add a little bit of water, not too much water, just a little bit. And you notice on this one, I didn't even touch the sides of this because it does not need the sides done at all. It literally, I just needed to trim the bottom just a touch, but the sides did not need anything. So I'm going to leave them alone. If I did much to them, I would be ruining the integrity of the piece because it is thinner. All right, so I am gonna put a little bit of water on the top because I'm going to stamp it with I'm going to stamp it with my little thing here and put it right in the middle. My logo. All right, and then because I do work with different clay bodies, I want to put on here what clay body it is. You don't have to do this part if you only work with like low fire or mid fire or high fire, whatever you work with. If you work with the same thing all the time, you don't need to do this part. But for me and for my students, we are going to mark it what it is. So I'm putting a little triangle for cone. That means cone. And then this is low fire. I'm going to put O5 here. And that's what I'm going to fire it at. All right. I'm going to loosen it up. And she's done. That easy. Now, again, some trimming, you can trim more. If you have more to take off, gladly take more off. It is completely up to you and the look that you want. All right, so here is another one that I'm going to show you how to trim. This one uh, has a much thicker bottom to it. So I definitely need to trim more off of this one. And so I'm going to demo that for you. Again, I'm going to just flip it over, put it centered. If you do not have a system like this, all you got to do, make sure it's nice and centered. Use some clay, preferably a little bit drier clay. Put it around three sides of your vessel. Make sure that it is um, secure. All right. She's not going anywhere. I do have a nice flat bottom on this, but I definitely have a lot more. I'm going to probably end up going up to about um 2/3 up this cup, maybe even half, maybe half, not 2/3. That would be awfully far up it because this would be the up and this is the down. So again, I don't want to touch the bottom because it looks beautiful. I'm just going to start. I'm actually just going to start with my bigger side on this one because I do have a lot more to trim off. I'm holding this hand in the center. I just I don't know why I got into that habit. I don't know if people do that a lot, but I do it to help make sure that my piece stays down and um doesn't try to come up. And I even using this system, sometimes I feel like if I don't hold it down, it does want to come um off sometimes. Only when I'm using these. When I'm using the bars that come up and hold a piece in place, I don't feel that way. But all right, so I did start with this one. This piece is not nearly as dry as the other piece was. So this is definitely more at the leather hard that I want and not just one beyond the leather hard. The other one wasn't too dry, but it probably sat for about an hour too long, maybe 2 hours. All right, so I have a little bit of an idea of the shape I want right there. So I'm going to go in with my larger ribbon tool now because I can go, I'm gonna go up the vessel with this one. So again, I'm tucking my arm into my side so that my side is helping to hold my arm still. And I tend to stay in one place for a little bit before I move my tool. But one thing I want to make sure is if I move my tool, I'm not moving it down the vessel too quickly. I want to do it evenly. Think about like when you're pulling and you're going even, you're pulling your piece up, you're doing it at the same time. Same type of thing. I want to make sure that I'm evenly trimming this. So I want to make sure that I'm going down the piece um, at the same pace the entire time. And I'm just going to start back at the top where I was. Let it rotate as I travel down the side of the piece. And as I'm traveling, what I'm really doing is I'm just kind of changing the angle of my tool. So I started with it at this angle, and then as I'm traveling, the tool itself is changing angle. So I don't have to actually move my hand that much. I'm just changing the angle of the tool, which is helping to get all of what I needed to get. So here you can see changing the angle of the tool. This time I am going down a little bit further on the piece. You can see I went to right about right there. You can see the line where I stopped, and it is starting to form out. So I'm going to take, there's still kind of a little bulb right here. So I want to make sure I take that off. I don't necessarily need to go back through this part again of it. I'm just going to take a little bit more off of this. And if you like that rounded shape, that's fine. If you want it to have that little bit more bulbed at the bottom, that's fine. I just think it's a little bit too thick right in here. So I want to take it off. Again, I'm trying to consider the weight of it, um, not necessarily the shape of it. I honestly am not that worried about how the shape turns out on these. Um, I'm more worried about the heaviness of them. Now, of course, the more pressure you apply to the piece, to your tool, the more it's going to take off. However, for me, this isn't about speed. This is about making my piece look good. Also, honestly, I think that trimming is kind of cathartic. And I also think that it kind of brings your piece together. This is the final step before you glaze it. So it kind of gives that finishing form to it. So I actually enjoy trimming. I also don't want to ruin my piece, and I'm afraid that if I do apply too much pressure to it, I could push it off, or could ruin it in some way. So I don't want to do that. So um, I'm applying a little pressure to it, but not a lot. I don't want to ruin it. I don't mind taking my time and just taking off a little bit at a time. All right. I think I'm gonna do go one more round, then I think I'm done. All right. I am happy with that. I'm going to take my sponge with a little bit of water. Make sure it's a little bit of water. You do not want it to where it's dripping when you pick it up, or you can squeeze it and water's coming out of it. Make sure it's damp. You get all the water out of it, and then you can start going around your vessel with it. Again, I'm not applying a bunch of pressure. I'm literally just setting it there. I'm letting the sponge just kind of smooth out what I've done. I'm getting the bottom of it. Although the bottom was already pretty smooth, I'm still just smoothing it all out. Also, if you had fingerprints in it or anything from taking it off the wheel when you first made it, this is a good time to use your sponge and just run it around and get those fingerprints off of it. I didn't have any on there, but I just ran it around anyways. All right, so again, I just did this one pretty basic. It's flat at the bottom and then it rounds up. I didn't need to do much to this. It's a pretty basic shape, so I'm just keeping it pretty basic. Gonna stamp it. When I'm doing this part, anytime I don't want my wheel turning, I take my foot off the pedal. That is very important. Take your foot off the pedal. Do not let it just rest there. Um, when I was first starting out in pottery, I would forget about taking my foot off the pedal, and as I was maybe um, doing this part or signing my name in it, whatever I was doing, sometimes I would hit that pedal and the piece would end up going flying. So whenever I'm not rolling the wheel, my foot is off of the pedal. All right, there you have it. Thanks for watching.